All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the commission meeting for the Port of Bellingham for Tuesday, August 8th, 2023. There are several ways to participate. Thank you to everyone who is here in person. It's nice to see you. We also are on Zoom and on YouTube. I'm going to start with opening the public meeting and doing roll call. Commissioner Briscoe?
Here.
Commissioner Bell?
Here.
And Commissioner Shepard is also here.
Quite unusual, huh?
I know, we've got all three commissioners here on a sunny August day.
Nice of you guys to join me.
Hey, I ran 600 miles just to be here so you wouldn't be lonely like last time.
I was on some severe other time zone.
It's hard to banter with yourself,
Yeah.
although I found a way to do it.
I don't know if that needs a follow-up comment.
No, I got the requisite number of laughs.
I'm going to start with our advisory committee meeting schedule and then go into our public comment. We have our Marina Advisory Committee is on summer break and will resume meetings on September 12th. Those meetings occur here. And the next BIAC or Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee meeting is scheduled for October 12th down out at the ARF building. Next, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up? Okay. If anyone in the audience wishes to provide public comment, we ask that you keep it to about 3 minutes, and you can go to the podium and share anything you'd like with us. Hearing none, we'll see if anyone on Zoom has any public comment. Okay. We'll have one additional public comment period at the end of our regular scheduled business.
The chat was just for the agenda.
Okay. All right. Carrie, consent agenda, if you please.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
All right. Questions or comments? Commissioner Bell?
Nope, got all mine answered, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Briscoe, anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Same here.
Okay, motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
All right. Commissioner Bell?
Yes,
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0. We have one presentation, Q2 financials and 22 audit report. And I don't know. Tamara, do we get a joke today?
or caffeine.
If you promise to laugh harder at mine than Commissioner Bell's.
Okay.
Easy.
Okay.
We can probably arrange that.
Okay, what's the difference between a hippo and a zippo? One is really heavy and one's a little lighter.
Wow. Yes. Very good. Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm Tamara Sowjack, CFO, Port of Bellingham. So today we're going to go over the financial performance for the first 6 months, quarterly updates, and then at the end we'll go over the 2022 audit results. So jumping right in, the first 6 months, this total revenues were $16 million for operating revenue, so that's the first column. Compared to the budget, the same time period, $15 million, so we did better than budget in revenues. And then last year, same time frame, 14.8. So revenues came in higher than budget and higher than last year, so good news.
Good.
Expenses came in at 13.3 compared to our budget of 14 million, so that's better than we planned, but not as good as we did last year. So at the bottom there, net income 2.8 for the first 6 months compared to budget, much better than budget, not quite as good as last year, but still better than we planned. So we'll drill into those numbers. So looking at the revenues, the 26.5, I said 16, that was the operating, the 15.2, and then the 900,000. So the 15.2 million is the aviation, real estate, marinas, and they're all pretty much above budget for revenues. And then the 906,000 is the waterfront and meetings and events. So we'll get into those as well. And then expenses, 10.7 for expenses. Most divisions are under budget. And then the 2.5 economic development, community connections, and the waterfront. Again, doing well, but we'll drill into those. So we'll start with aviation. So the green column is the first 6 months of this year. The purple column is what we budgeted, what we planned, and then the blue column is what we did the prior year. So revenues came in at 3.5 million to a budget of 2.9, so better than planned. And expenses very close to budgets. So those two things together lead to a positive net income at the airport.
So just out of curiosity, why did we project, or why did we budget less than last year's aviation revenue? Because I think the trend was going up. So why was the budget so much less than even what we did last year? Why wasn't it straight across?
I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that parking and concessions well exceeded our budget. So, but I don't know why we budgeted less than actual. It could be
Because
also-
actual last year was healthy.
Yeah,
right?
we also do our budget earlier in the year, right? We start in September, October, so it's possible that we just didn't have.
Was there an expectation that we were going to lose some ground?
There was thinking that Alaska would cut back, which they did, drastically from 5 flights a day down to the 2. I'm not sure why we exceeded it so much, other than maybe Southwest is doing better than they expected on all their routes.
I'm just more worried about making the budget a little closer to what,
Yeah, me too.
if we expected a decrease, then I'd like to know why.
Yeah, the only route I think we expected a decrease on was the Alaska flights, but I do think Southwest and Allegiant are faring better than we expected, which is why you're beating it. 'Cause if this was just Alaska up there, it would be the opposite picture. The green column would be way down.
So we're heading into budget season for 2024. We'll take a really good look at this
Yeah.
for next year. Make sure that we try to be a little bit more accurate.
A few more flights to Denver.
You trying to get rid of me? No, it really looks good if we beat the budget, but when we don't budget accurately, then it's a false flag. Is that the
Yep.
right terminology? Yeah,
I know what you mean.
thank you.
So sticking with aviation, looking at emplanements, the first 6 months, 158,000 passengers compared to 151,000 the prior year. Not quite pre-pandemic levels, but inching closer. And I have been told by someone in the room that they are really hoping that this would be a quarterly number at some point in the future. Okay, moving to the marinas. Revenues are a little higher. We say this every 6 months, or the first 6 months of every year, because it's a seasonal business. This will even out. I expect it happens every year. Even though it shows we're better than budget, I expect the revenues to come in because.
But could that be the same thing? Are we flatlining like with the airport?
So in this case, I believe we could do better to seasonally budget. So it's 1/12, but we could do a better job of.
The marinas are really easy to budget because we know they're going to be full and we know what the rate is because
Yeah.
you approve the rate. So it's a little easier to budget the marinas. The real estate is obviously very easy to budget because we have leases and we know what those leases are going to produce. Where we have trouble is the shipping terminal as new business materializes, and then when airlines add and reduce flights, that makes it a little trickier. But I will get the aviation one better for 2024.
Yeah, we can look at doing a better seasonal budget for just spreading out the marinas.
Well, you've got a seasonal budget at the airport too, right?
Yeah,
Our-
we can
our
look at that
peak-
too,
Our
yeah.
peak is in the summer, so
Yeah.
if you've got a flatline budget,
Very good point.
right,
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at those,
probably the answer to the first question then.
maybe. Yeah, we'll take a look for sure. Let's see, for the expenses for the marinas, right at budget, no significant variances to report on anything there. A shipping terminal, Rob just mentioned this, so the first 6 months, we brought in over $1 million. We had budgeted about 500,000, we had done 500,000 the previous year, so we've doubled last year's revenues at the shipping terminal. Not quite as much as we had hoped, I think, but still very, very good positive results. And then expenses below budget, still a positive net income for this facility.
And we're down on that because we expected at least one more ship from ABC.
One more from ABC, and I think we had one more from someone else in there as well.
And ABC is not expected to make that up this year, are they?
They may. They're now saying, I think, is Dave in here? They're saying the end of August.
It'll probably be more like October.
Oh, so yeah, they won't make it up at that point.
So we just lost a ship basically this year.
Yeah, the price of steel is very low, so they're just holding off on waiting for the price of steel to rebound. So I think you're correct in saying we lost a ship. The one that should have come at the end of July now isn't delayed. It sounds like it's just not coming.
If you could go to work on our relationship with China, that might help. I don't think you want me to. No, absolutely right. If you want to tank,
the guy for that. Okay.
if you want to tank the price of steel, put you on it.
All right, so moving to the cruise terminal. This revenue and expenses trending similar to budget and to last year. Nothing significant to report here either. Real estate, we usually see the revenues a little closer to budget than last year, but remember, we put 742 Marine Drive online. So this is probably the reason for that bump. And then expenses, obviously, well controlled. Overhead costs, so these are admin, executive planning, and facilities. Again, as budgeted, no surprises here. Running a little lower than budget, but a little higher than last year as costs increase. Public priorities, the revenues are mainly waterfront and meetings and events. And then expenses aren't nearly as what we had planned, but revenues are holding steady. So pretty standard there. And then all of that leads to a strong balance sheet. Looking at the very bottom line on the right-hand column, that was 6 months ago. Our net assets, our net position was $276 million. It's at $279, so going in the right direction. And then current investments, we have about $15.5 million in federal securities, earning an average of just over 3%. Part of this, I was able to purchase an investment in May with a 5.35 interest rate, so that bumped up the average. Yep. And then the LGIP, I was as surprised as you are. And then the LGIP is earning 5.2. That was at the end of June. I looked at July and it was 5.24.
Where did you find 5.35? Just a point of interest.
Just our broker recommends daily stuff, and so we look at the ladder and see where we could use. And
That's phenomenal.
yeah, I mean, it's callable, but it's at least a few months, if not a year or so.
Just to put that in perspective, we recently talked to our broker about issuing debt for next year, and we were quoted a price of like 375 to 40. So she did pretty good to find 5.
All right, so that's it for the financial part of it. So on to the quarterly updates. The stormwater program, both permits are in compliance. At the airport, samples were within permit limits. At the shipping terminal, we continue to have some issues. 11 exceedances at 3 locations, copper, zinc, total suspended solids, and turbidity. Those responses will be complete by the August 15th deadline, but they triggered a level 2 corrective actions. So those will be complete by August of 2022, which is the deadline for those. I don't know, but Brian is here.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Brian Gower, Director of Environmental and Planning. Yeah, so each site has different levels that trigger, or different concentrations that trigger these different levels of reactions, and it depends on the site. So that can be everything from sweeping to some structural changes, routing water to different locations, routing it away from the treatment area, refreshing the treatment media, that kind of thing. So it all depends on the specific exceedance. The level 3 is when you really get into like building new structures or building a larger treatment facility. So these are all in compliance. It just, depending on the area, we may route water a different way. We may change out the media and then see, oh, did that help? Did that do the trick? So each one has a different, and we can get you a list of those if you're interested on what each one was. But yeah, it takes a little extra work, but it's not as major as a level 3, which does have a bigger capital input. Yeah.
So at some point, with the high profile of the shipping terminal, I think having a real understanding of what that means in real terms would be nice. Maybe a presentation on stormwater. I know we've got some money we're going to invest in some stormwater facilities down the road.
Yeah, and actually, we are. I've been talking to Elise Courts just this past couple of weeks on getting a presentation to the overall stormwater program set up for the commissioners later this fall. So that's right on target for us.
Exactly what I'm asking
Okay.
for.
Yep,
Thank
we'll
you.
do. Yep.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Bell's certainly correct. It's getting scrutiny. It's gonna, people are gonna latch on to some of these numbers.
Yeah.
And
You all heard that?
Should I repeat it? Commissioner Bell had made a good
Commissioner Bell
point.
was correct.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
What did you say?
I think it's on the record. It'll be in the minutes.
It's a rare occurrence.
What are the suspended solids? Is that just dirt?
Yeah, so that's typically, and that's it's just dirt that's suspended in the water column. Then oftentimes those metals are adhere to that, and so then they separate out the metals. That's how you get the metal concentrations. And total suspended solid is usually just kind of and turbidity similar. It's just a marker of needing more filtration or the turbidity that's not not letting it settle out and that kind of thing. So those tie to usually higher metals numbers, which are kind of adhered to those particles.
Are there any other metals we would be expecting to see that we're not because of the product that's down there? Do we test for iron or?
Yep. Yeah, we do. We test for a whole suite of them, and they're based on the types of uses. So the different types of parameters that really are tied to the types of uses that you would see down there. So like different types of industries have different parameters that you test for. So we're testing for everything that ecology says. For that type of operation, you should test for these parameters. And these were the only ones that had exceedances, but not surprising, copper and zinc. They're much harder to address than iron and lead and some of the stuff that's heavier that doesn't transport as easily. So copper and zinc are traditionally very hard to manage. So we've got filtration options, other things that we're going to continue to look at. But we'll provide more detail on that update if you'd like on what the technologies are that we could use.
And just one follow-up, if we have to, to address the level 2, or if there was potentially a level 3, are those costs that we're expected to bear because it's our stormwater system, or when does the tenant participate in the cost share?
Yeah, I think in this case, the Bellingham Shipping Terminal, is the permits in the port's hands. So is ultimately our responsibility. I think how we continue to work with our tenants and the operators there is, that's an operational thing we need to work with them on. Just to be able to stay operational, we need to stay in compliance. So it benefits everybody. So I think that's once we get to that point, hopefully we won't. Hopefully we'll continue to have the level 2 responses address that. You do have a significant amount of time once you hit a level 3, which is because they realize that it takes time to design it and engineer it. And some of the improvements that we already have planned for the terminal will continue to address these issues. So that could be even our level 3 response if we needed it. It's already under design right now.
I think maybe when you do that presentation, just a history of what our exceedances have been over a period of time, just to show
Yep.
that this is not an aberration.
Right, yep, we'll do.
It's high profile, so it's not an aberration.
Right,
So we should show that in some kind of graph form.
sure, yeah, can do.
There are also going to be some changes because the tenant is going to be having their own stormwater permits. How are they doing on acquiring those?
Yeah, we've met with ABC and the Department of Ecology, and they're underway with that right now. So they've met independently with Ecology, and they're planning on getting a stormwater permit application in, I think by the end of this month, maybe early next month. That's what they've agreed to work on. And then, of course, there's a process for Ecology to process that and get it underway. So we've been working really closely with them and continue to be available to help them out. I think that as these numbers continue to kind of get results like this, we'll just need to be ramping up our practices and helping them and staying in touch with Ecology. The thing, just to remind everybody though, we're not, the exceedances don't put us out of compliance with the permit. We're doing everything the permit requires, which wants you to respond and adapt and change and adjust as you go. So an exceedance doesn't qualify as a permit non-compliance.
Yeah, and there's a certain contingent that would love to see us tie those exceedances directly to ABC, but I think looking at the fact that it's copper and zinc, and they don't deal in copper and zinc. It's strictly ferrous metal that they're bringing to the waterfront and not non-ferrous. I think it's safe to say that these are exceedances that are not directly the responsibility of ABC.
Yeah, we'll definitely show kind of the historical data of what we've seen out there. Yeah.
When they have their own permits, are we going to see their sample results on a presentation like this?
We wouldn't
Quarterly?
necessarily in this, because this is really the port's risk summary of like kind of where we're at on different things. That would be really their permit. We could definitely do that. We can get it as public data, public information. When you upload your sample results, everybody has it available. So we could do that. We could ask them just to keep us informed on it and can present it. But it wouldn't be the same permit requirements that this is really kind of helping to keep the commission informed on. Okay, I tried to get away a couple times, but.
Thanks, Brian. Okay, so moving along, open claims against the port. We don't have anything new. The slip and fall in June of 2019 is still ongoing. Our legal and insurance teams are handling that. And then our December 22 winter storm costs are all in, and we are submitting to insurance for payment in the very near future. Public records request, we've had 69 the first 6 months. That's right on track with what we did last year. Those requests took over 200 staff hours to fulfill. 3 of those 69 are major, and 1 of those major ones are almost getting ready to close. So we're working through those.
Thank Bobby for that, because if he'd had an opponent, that would have been double.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Commissioner. And then finally, our safety report. For the first 6 months, we've had 2 injuries. Those 2 happened in the first quarter, so nothing happened the second quarter with any injuries or illnesses with our employees. So that's it until the audit. Any other comments or questions before I get into this? No? Okay. So when I say our audit, we actually have 5 audits. And each one, they all get done concurrently, simultaneously. So that's why when auditors are on site or busy, we're a little frazzled. So the first one is the financial statements. So, and the annual report. So are they presented correctly according to generally accepted accounting principles? And they said, yes, they are for 2022. Accountability, this is a big one that they really look at. Are we following all the laws, rules, and our own policies, and do we have proper controls in place to safeguard the public assets? And this is where they look at the Open Public Meetings Act. Are we conducting these meetings properly? And yes, of course, we do. And then the IDC. So this is audited every 2 years. There's one little transaction, and are we accounting for this business properly? Of course we are. And then the passenger facility charges is a completely separate audit, and those are the fees that we get assigned to an airline ticket, and we have to use those a certain way and report them a certain way. And so they look, are we accounting for them according to our agreements with the airlines? And yes, we are. And then finally, the federal grant audit. This is the big one. There's no wiggle room. If you make a little mistake, you get a finding. There's no exit item, there's no management talking about it. It's like, oh, you messed up, you forgot to dot that I, finding. But not us. So we got a very clean audit this year, and I'm super proud of that. So that's it for me.
You believe frazzled was the correct term?
Frazzled was the correct term, yes.
Curious, was it that strong?
Maybe not strong enough yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, just a comment. Having been on the phone with some of the auditors during that time period, I think I can speak, and you gentlemen should know that no one does this better than Tamara. And
We have all yeses.
in the relationship that we have with our regulators is phenomenal. And it's because they trust you, they know the detail that went into this, and you are to be lauded for that. And congratulated for that. This is a reflection on us, but it really is a reflection on you. You make us look really good.
They trust us.
So thank you. Yeah, you and your staff. So thank you very much for the time and the energy you put into that.
You're welcome.
And I echo all of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Tamara. Great job. Carrie, we're moving on to action item 1.
All right. Authorize executive director to execute an authorization to proceed for the Board Mill Group LLC proposed board mill block project within the waterfront district, and Director Environmental and Planning Services Brian Gowen.
Thanks, Carrie. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowen, Environmental Planning Director. Yeah, so this is exciting to present this action item for you today because it actually shows just our ongoing redevelopment progress we're making in the waterfront district. And we've been working, as you know, for a couple of years now on the board mill building requests for proposals, and then we got a great set of responses to that. And now we're at a significant milestone there that I'm going to go through relatively quickly because we've talked about this a few times now. But just as a quick way of reminder, as with all of our development agreements that we have in the waterfront now, they're kind of a phased approach. And so including Harcourt, Millworks, and then the Board Mill Group, who've been working with on this project has been really great, is a step-by-step process. And we entered into an option to purchase with the Board Mill Group back in April of this year. And then there's a phased step-by-step approach, and we're at this very early stage. The first deliverable is under these agreements is a project concept design, and that comes to the commission for evaluation and consideration. Then pending commission approval of that, we'll move into an authorization to proceed, which is the action item that's before you today. Then the group will go forward and start working with the city on the land use and design review. Any changes that may come out of that or refinements, that will then come back to the commission in a project development design, and that's a little bit more detailed. That allows them, pending commission approval of that step, would go then on to the city's building permit step, which is much more detailed, full engineering design, fully permitted project. Financing is fully in place at that point, and then a project memorandum will come to the commission for approval, and that will set the stage for the final property sale and transaction and lead to a project construction schedule that's built into that agreement as well. So that's just a reminder, step-by-step process is what we're doing with Harcourt and Mercy, and now with the Board Mill Group, which is exciting. So the Board Mill Group did submit their project concept design to the port staff on July 11th, which was the date that we had agreed to in our option agreement. So right on track there. It includes the redevelopment of the Board Mill building and then 2 new buildings as well. It's about 500,000 square feet of new development in the downtown waterfront, which is a big footprint. And it includes a number of public parks and dedicated open space as well, which I'll kind of walk through. Just after the staff review of this, though, this was consistent with what we've been working with them on regularly. We've met weekly for about a year now, great project partners to work with. All the elements that they bring to the table have held up into this project concept and is really consistent with what we've wanted to see down there. So it's a great project partners, and they're here today to address some questions if you have any as well after this is done. So just a quick reminder, this is consistent with what we saw in the project or the option that was before you in April that was approved. But just to remind you, the Board Mill Hotel includes about 107 hotel rooms, a meeting and banquet space, a multi-vendor marketplace, indoor-outdoor cafe, and then rooftop meeting space as well. The residential building is a 7-story, about over 160 units residential building, includes a spa and fitness center, as well as waterfront commercial space, and then community gathering space for the residents of that building as well. And then the park structure, the park building is a 6-story parking structure that has a large community park on the top that'll be public, open space, and accessible to the public year-round. And then also includes over 95 residential units and 400 plus parking spaces, as well as ground floor commercial. So this is a big development. It's got a lot of really great elements to it, a lot of public and open space as well. So really consistent with what we requested in the proposals and what we've seen consistently as this has moved forward. So that's the concept that they've brought forth. And so just to remind the commission on the step-by-step here, pending your approval of this, we'll submit this authorization to proceed to the Board Mill Group after that, and along with a site access agreement that allows them to get their consultants, surveyors, geotech, all the people that need to get out on the site to start doing that work. They'll have 120 days to submit a complete application to the city for their land use and their design review. That's a city-led process. It also includes a public element to it, public process element. And then those subsequent deliverables will come to the commission after they've gone through those initial steps. The schedule of the option includes a final occupancy of the Board Mill Hotel and the residential building by June 30th of 2028, and followed just 6 months later for the park building, December 31st of 2028 as well. So with that, Port staff really has enjoyed working with their team. We recommend approval. It's consistent with everything we've wanted to see to date, and so we'd be happy to address any questions you might have. And we've got representatives from the Board Mill Group as well, if you'd like to ask them any questions.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Brian. Commissioner Briscoe, any questions?
No, I'd just like to say to the group, thank you for your vision and your ongoing efforts to make this happen. This is something that's really big for the waterfront. The Port's glad to be partnered with you and see this happen. So thank you very much.
Okay. Commissioner Bell?
Elephant in the room. How's your financing going? Would you like to address that? Knowing that that's the difficult,
Do you have specific questions? Or,
well, you could, I'm afraid to do that with you.
it's, I have answers to all of that right here. And Ellie made me a great cup of coffee.
I feel that the more specific I get, the longer the meeting's
No.
going to be. So how's your financing?
It's going very well. I'll tell you what, the Board Mill block continues to generate incredible interest everywhere. Literally all over the country. The Board Mill Group is engaged with top legal, financial, environmental, and capital consultants. Capital consultants that are near local, we'll call them, who have successfully funded projects in this area. We have also environmental. I believe that we are this close to signing an environmental agreement. That's very important to finance. But across the board, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, the financial markets are very interested in this project across the board. Still consistent with what we laid out initially in our initial proposal a long time ago. Private equity, Board Mill equity, private equity for soft costs and acquisition of the land. The land will be divided into 3 or 4 separate parcels. Each one will be taken down in that way. And then through private equity and Board Mill equity, private equity will secure debt from a variety of different, depending on where the best opportunities are. We are activating the opportunity zone. We have financial consultants. This is consistent. We've been working on this. I think we've reported on this a few times. At least we've kept these guys up to that. We're activating the opportunity zone. So we'll be bringing in both private equity, opportunity zone equity. And so we're creating the structure that will allow the Board Mill Group to manage all that as it comes through. So it's going very well.
That's what I wanted.
Okay, no
Yeah.
other specific, and then, of course, through multifamily leases, hotel operations, commercial leases and such. C-PACER, we've engaged with the county on C-PACER. C-PACER could potentially, it's working for a lot of folks. We don't know if in the end, because we're 12 to 18 months away from actually, getting financed.
Mike, maybe define what C-PACER is for those that don't know.
C-PACER is a federal program that's administered by the county that can provide, in fact, we've heard up to 40%, but 30% of your capital stack, okay, It's actually through a tax. The funding is provided by a lender and then collected by the county in the form of a tax, and it follows the land. So it's attractive in many different ways. It's based on how green the project is. In Washington and in Bellingham, the requirements are, the building requirements are such that you don't have to go very far beyond the basic requirements that we have in the code in the state of Washington to be able to qualify for CPACER funding. And so it's based on how green the project is going to be. And this, I venture to say, this project is going to be the greenest project that's ever come to Bellingham.
Who makes the call on that? Is that the county council or is that a board?
No.
No,
the county is set up for CPACER. Okay? They've done a few. I believe they are working on their second one. They've done one. Okay? And we simply, the lender works with the county, and that's the way it works, just like a tax. And again,
it's an administrative process.
It's an administrative process.
Not a political one.
Not a political process whatsoever. The political and it was renewed this July. They originally adopted it. Whatcom County adopted it for 2 years, so they could relook at it in July, and it's been readopted. So and especially right now in the current environment, and whatever the economic environment is at the time that we need funding, we will acquire the funding. That's in our agreement. Okay? But CPACER, more and more across the country for counties that are engaged with it, states and then counties, because the state legislature has to approve it first. The capital stack is including more and more CPACER funding. In 2-3 years ago, it was less so because it's a little more expensive. Well, now a little more expensive isn't too bad because it's not as expensive as typical money. And I think that was the way it was originally intended, that it would allow for projects that were willing to go above and beyond. And isn't it exciting that the energy plant is under construction now? Isn't that exciting?
So our district energy helps you get that.
District energy helps us to get a lot of that. Okay? It also helps us to refine a product that people will desire that will be one of the greenest ways to, I mean, that's our heat pump. That's exciting. So, CPACER, also the Opportunity Zone. There are a lot of folks that are interested in investing and having up to 30 years of tax-free returns and for capital gains. Okay? And so the structure that we've created, that we are finalizing the creation of, will allow for that. And we're very excited to be rolling that out over the next couple of months. So then you'll have the opportunity to see exactly how it's going, and we know that there are a lot of community members that are very interested in participating more and more all the time. So that's exciting too. People in Bellingham want to be part of something really cool, and this is really cool. Anything else? Ken?
Have project cost estimates changed dramatically or significantly throughout the planning process so far?
Well, project cost estimates have changed dramatically since we first were approved. Remember, initially we had 2 buildings and they were a little smaller. And now we have really 4 buildings with the parking structure and the residents there. So, because it's scaled, yes, they have. One of the things that both Columbia Hospitality has done with us and now Capital Consultants are doing for us now is analyzing the project so that it will be, so that you can decide, okay, what about unit mix? What kind of unit mix? What kind of unit mix should we have in Bellingham? I mean, we have good ideas, but we're having others look at it too, because we don't know everything. Experts who go to the banks all the time, to the lenders all the time, to the pension funds, to the insurance companies, and acquire this kind of money. So they're helping us dial in the project as well, and to keep those costs down. But yes, they've gone up incredibly because the project has scaled. But, yeah.
Question I saw in the park building, you're planning to have 10% of housing be ranked as affordable.
Well, that is in our option. You guys approve, that's in our option. We agreed to that, and it's something that we agreed to initially as part of the negotiation for that.
Yeah, that's right. That's a piece of that fits with what the interlocal agreement for facilities between us and the city. You know, we've been working closely with the Board Mill Group. They've been really open to that, bringing that a minimum of 10% affordable housing that meets that definition in our interlocal agreement. Just as, you know, as part of what we as the port tried to agree with the city to project, we would go for in the waterfront district more and more. So this is just us working together to follow through on that commitment. And yeah, they've been more than happy to do that as well. So that's going to meet that minimum requirement.
Do you have an idea on how you will maintain that affordability over time?
Well, that will be managed through most likely I've had buildings before where I actually was one of the first people to ever say yes to Section 8 a long time ago. And so it'll likely be managed through the Opportunity Council, and they will, their group of people will, I work closely on other things with Adrian Solenberger, who runs that program for the Opportunity Council and the housing program. And so that's how it'll be maintained. I mean, it'll be, I believe, it'll be on title. It'll be on title for that particular parcel. Now, one of the ways that will make this attractive as far as finance is to get, you know, housing gets a tax break, 8, 10, 12 years tax breaks in Bellingham, but not there. Not in the Opportunity Zone on this property. So what we've done is we've began a dialogue with the city. We've already agreed to 10%. We've begun a dialogue with the city if they might consider reopening that tax break opportunity, property tax break opportunity, if we increase the number of affordable housing units. Okay? And I believe it's 20% is what they've asked for. And that would be 20% of the park building, okay? And tax breaks for that building, so. Mm-hmm.
Have you had any other feedback from the city about where they've requested any changes that were significant?
We are having we have had, as Brian said, an incredibly positive experience for this whole year plus, or year and a half now that we've been working with the port. But working in partnership with the port, I believe, has paved the way. The city is very excited about this project. The city is working with us to make it real. And working with us, I mean the port's team and Brian and his team and Elliot and his team and to make it, they're excited about it. There's not a lot. We met with them a long time ago and they asked for certain things and you asked for no surface parking. Guess what? No surface parking. They asked for the center courtyard to be populated through in multiple areas. Don't have that building just be a blockade and, you know, this is, okay? So there are multiple accesses through the building, both the market hall and the restaurants populate right through the building and right out into those courtyards, and all activated to the public. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So we incorporated a lot of the things that they suggested early on. We love the idea too. You know, getting the structure park was help to solve that surface parking problem and look to the future as the city is interested in doing. And so that's very exciting. So certainly there'll be nuances, and there'll be a lot of that, but it's working really well, both with parks, planning, and with Tara Sundin and her team.
Just curious, would the city go to a tax break on the entire park building or just the portions of it that are residents? Because it's mostly a parking structure with some residents on it.
Parking structure with 95 residents, and then another building. Right now, it's primarily that parcel that has the parking structure and those residences that would be affordable. We're not considering affordable on the other structure. Okay, but our goal is to have the entire project be inclusive.
I think to answer your question, Commissioner, the city's kind of undecided on that. I think it's kind of right now they're evaluating whether that could be applied, and I think working hand in hand with the team just to say, where would this work, where wouldn't it work? So it would be, that's an unknown question at this point, but yeah, they're looking at that, and I think they seemed receptive to it, but there was also, you know, a lot of reasons why it wasn't set up in the waterfront in the first place. So it's really a kind of a city decision. If we've got some thoughts, we can definitely work with the staff on hearing from them on kind of where they're at on that, though.
And why wasn't it set up for the waterfront in the first place? What was the rationale?
Well, the main reason there was, you know, that was part of the property acquisition was, you know, cleanup, redevelopment, and putting the property back onto the tax rolls. I mean, really. And so there's a lot of investment from the port and the city in parks, roads, infrastructure, cleanup that essentially, and it's in our interlocal, that we can't sell to a non-tax paying entity unless we pay their equivalent taxes or they waive that, which is what happened with Mercy. So it was by design that area was to be put back on the tax rolls for all the investment that was going to go into it, which GP was a big, you know, job producer and a big taxpayer for that. So that was back in the day. That's, you know, before all of us really were involved in this. That was the logic of that. I think that's why the city said they may be open to reevaluating that. Their level of investment, you know, has changed a little bit with some of the adjustments we've made. Let's relook at that if that's the appropriate thing to do. So that's where that's at. I think that they needed to go back and say, is this something that would work for the financial model of what the waterfront district acquisition was originally intended?
Can you remind them that they don't have to build a park now that we've got a pump track in there?
Bingo.
We took care of that for them.
And we want that park, though, up on top of the
We should-
sixth floor.
No, I'm just saying that we saved the city some money by building a,
And nicely improved, I must say. Holy smokes.
yeah, somebody's got a personal interest in that.
You hit that new jump line yet, Mike?
I'm working on my back right now, you know. Plus, they won't let me on with my stealth electric bike.
Well, very good. Any other questions or comments?
No, my only comment is clearly going to be approving this tonight, but I just want you to realize that you got here, gentlemen, because of the non-performance of the group in front of you. So we're watching this. And the changes that came from the group in front of you afforded you this opportunity. So we have some high expectations, and it's, believe it or not, it's our reputation on the line. When Harcourt did not meet their obligations, it wasn't Harcourt that got the heat, it was the commission that got the heat. So we have high expectations for you, and we're going to hold you to it. And just want to say thank you for the work that you've put in and the attitude you've brought to it. But just wanted a reminder that you're here because of somebody didn't perform up to our expectations, and we're going to be holding you, your feet to the fire on this one. So thank you for everything. And I think that's all I got.
So I guess I got enough faith in them for both of us, because I think they're going to do just fine.
Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears.
Okay. All right, well, we have high expectations, it's no secret, but I do recognize the level of collaboration and cooperation between this group and our staff is extremely high. And that gives me a lot more confidence and faith in how the outcome is going to materialize than we may have had in the past. So I do appreciate all the work that's gone on and the good partnership that has been built so far. Okay, Carrie.
All right. Authorize the executive director to execute an authorization to proceed for the Board Mill Group LLC proposed board mill block project within the waterfront district.
Okay, Commissioner Briscoe.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Commissioner Bell?
I'm just a yes.
And Commissioner Shepherd is also a yes. It's going to be a game changer down there, so keep going.
Thank you.
All right. Approve a motion authorizing the executive director to execute an agreed order to perform remedial design at the Westman Marine cleanup site. Environmental project manager, Ben Howard.
And we're done with you guys if you,
That was a dismissal. We're done with you. You can stay and be bored if you'd like.
I've had to sit through some of Ben's presentations in the past and I warned you, Ben, I warned you.
I kind of invited it.
You did.
I did. It's my fault.
We had a little banter before the meeting tonight.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, everybody.
Let us know if we can do anything to help you out.
Thanks. All right, well, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Ben Howard, Environmental Project Manager. Today, I'm presenting the action item for authorization of the Westman Marine cleanup site agreed order to perform remedial design and permitting for the cleanup action. The site's located within Blaine Harbor at the Blaine Marine Industrial Area. And this is showing a historical photo of the former boatyard.
That's when it had boats in.
The Westman Marine site has operated as a marine vessel maintenance and repair facility from the 1950s. Historical boatyard operations resulted in hazardous substances identified at the site that required remediation under the Model Toxics Control Act, or MOTCA. The Westman site was identified by Ecology as a state-listed site in 2012, and in 2013, the Port and Ecology entered into an agreed order to complete a remedial investigation and feasibility study, or RIFS. I know it's helpful to have the acronyms. The RFS was completed in 2020 and identified a preferred cleanup alternative to address the contamination at the site. Then in coordination with the port, Ecology developed a cleanup action plan, which describes how the preferred alternative will be implemented. And the port and Ecology have developed an agreed order to complete remedial design and permitting of the cleanup action. And the cleanup action plan is an exhibit to that agreed order. And between May and July 2023, Ecology issued the draft agreed order for public review and didn't receive any public comments. So this illustrates the areas of the overall site cleanup and the different cleanup components. Elements of the cleanup include upland soil removal and capping, sediment dredging and disposal, and infrastructure removal and replacement needed to support the cleanup activities. So the yellow shading shows the areas of the upland cleanup, including the soil removal, placement of a geotextile marker it's a marker to show the environmental cap that will be placed on top of that. And the green shading shows the areas of planned sediment dredging. Note in the upper right, the green shading which highlights a former tide grid, which has been incorporated into the Westman site. Certain marine infrastructure will be temporarily removed and replaced as part of the cleanup action, and this will allow for construction of the upland cap and full removal of contaminated sediments. The existing marine railway is planned to be removed and replaced with a travel lift system, including filling of the upland portion of the railway and installation of travel lift piers.
Ben,
So-
could you go back and slide? What's this tide grid potential removal? I know you said, you mentioned it briefly. Could you describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So the tide grid was first operational, I think, in the mid-'60s. So basically, vessels could come in, get on the piles, and at low tide, they could work on their boat, just kind of. So there's not really a lift, and you bring it upland. It's just right there on the sediments.
Was it basically just a steel grate that
Would you like me to explain it for you, Ben?
filtered the water through?
Please.
Okay, so they drove piling.
I've got a picture of it.
So they drove piling in that area, they drove piling, and on top of the piling, they put big beams. They're probably like a 16 by 16, some of them were 2 foot by 2 foot beams, depending on what they used there. And you had piling wall next to that, and they were lined up with the beams. So you go in at high water, tie your boat up, you lean your boat inboard a little bit. Smart people do that, unsmart people went outboard, but you lean inboard a little bit, and you line up for your keel and stuff, and you settle down with the tide. Tide goes out, you can work on the boat, paint it, do whatever. Tide comes in and floats you off. So there was no lift involved, it was just timber. And I believe the only thing left is the pilings and some of the timber remnants.
Yeah, there's a few pilings still remaining.
The base pilings, all the stand pilings, all that was been removed. So you have there's a few of the old timbers and probably some of the pilings left that haven't deteriorated. But they work really well, and we had one right here in Squalicum Harbor there by the restroom, that first restroom you see there was one right there. They're all over in Alaska, they still use them up there. The big push on getting rid of these was not being able to contain the paint stuff off the boats, so.
Is that what most of the cleanup is?
Yeah,
ultimately?
so the tide grid wasn't actually part of the RFS process. It was kind of a separate area, and so we ended up incorporating it into this site because it's similar contaminants, similar kind of use. And so we're going to be collecting more data as part of the design process to see if cleanup has to happen in that area.
Can we put slips in there? Floats?
You have to dredge.
Pretty shallow.
I think you'd have to pull those piling in those beams, and you'd have to dredge a little bit. It's pretty shallow there.
Yeah, I'm presuming there's going to be contamination there just based on the use, and there most likely will be some sort of dredging action.
It's mostly gonna be lead from the paint, the bottom paint, anti-fouling paint had the stuff in it.
We're looking at an angle there. It looks like 25, 30 boats in there.
What size boats?
Fair enough.
And how fast are you gonna go in to tie them up? No, it is quite a bit of area there that could be used. But once again, I'm pretty safe. I'm gonna say we're gonna have to do some dredging. And if you do the dredging, you're gonna disturb that material, so you're gonna have to clean it up.
Yeah.
So if you went in to clean the material up,
Yeah. Then you do the dredging.
yeah,
Yeah,
same
and the
time.
dredging will provide, additional depth in that area.
At least good to think about that option as we're going forward with this project.
But it's more than likely contaminated with the same material, so
Right,
you're
it's got
hauling
copper
all
in it.
that to Roosevelt anyway.
A lot of copper. Lead and copper both.
PCBs.
Yeah, traditional contaminants and what we're seeing at the boatyard is metals and PCBs, and TBT especially. That was a anti-fouling paint.
Ben, I know this is the preferred cleanup. There's a range of cleanups that get presented. How does this preferred one that was selected fall into that range of the most expensive Cadillac one to the least expensive? Or does it fall in that range?
Typically, they'll fall somewhere kind of in the middle. There's kind of the monitor, which in this case, isn't really practical because they wouldn't, meet the cleanup standards. And then there's kind of a bigger dredging footprint, kind of the dig everything concept. So it kind of falls in the middle of the range of costs. And, there's Ecology has the disproportionate cost analysis. It's a DCA. So you look at the benefits of, the environmental benefits you get out of the cleanup versus what the costs are. And that's actually built into the cleanup regulations. And that's really what drives kind of like that cost benefit ratio. Yeah.
When we built the new harbor there, we did a lot of dredging. We probably cleaned up a lot of the stuff that was away from the bulkhead walls and so on and so forth. I would think most of that was probably taken at that time. You would probably get a little sloughing where the bulkheads have let loose, but I would think that the further out water stuff would have been pretty well cleaned up.
Yeah, and we're collecting a lot more data right now to kind of confirm exactly where the dredge footprint should be, but we are seeing that. The further you get away, the concentrations decrease significantly.
Remember how many dredgings we've done in that harbor since it was built? Probably only maybe 2. I don't think it fills in as fast as this one does.
Yeah, probably not.
Yep, any more questions on that? As long as I have this slide open on the cleanup action plan, my next slide is kind of going through the next steps of what the cleanup is.
So in that upland removal area and capping, how far down do we have to go? How many tons how much we're gonna remove? Do you know what our depth is?
Generally, it's going to be about 2 feet, because that's the definition of environmental cap, is 2 feet of gravel, basically. So we would take out 2 feet, put down a marker, and then fill it back with a cap. And the marker is so in the future, if you're out there digging trenches for utilities or something, you know where the environmental cap ends. I think we're also going to be looking at just the grading of the site and see if there's a need to not remove as much material, but maybe, elevate the site a little bit for, future potential flooding of the site.
For bigger king tides?
Yeah.
We're gonna cap that with all gravel? Is that what our intention is at this point, or are we talking about putting concrete in for, we're gonna have to have concrete pads for the cleaning the boat, because we have to have that recirculation system.
Yeah, I think those kind of more detailed questions, we're definitely going to start asking those and getting decisions as we're getting into the design.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so clean up next steps. The first design-related activities will be to complete investigations to obtain additional data and information for the engineering work. Engineering and design will follow the investigation work with preparation of an engineering design report, which is the first deliverable under the agreed order. So that an engineering design report is the EDR, and it's typically considered a 30% design. And as the EDR is developed, that information will be used to prepare permitting documents and begin the permitting process. And it's anticipated that a future consent decree will be executed prior to bidding and construction. And cleanup construction is anticipated to be completed in 2024 and continue into the 2025 permitting work window. And this is pending, consultation with the federal permitting agencies. And then following cleanup construction, there will be a period of monitoring to ensure the long-term effectiveness of the cleanup. So thanks. I'd be happy to address any questions.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner Briscoe?
On that depth they're gonna take out, is 2 feet the minimum or maximum?
For the upland areas,
Yeah, for cleaning the is 2 foot the minimum or maximum depth they use?
it's kind of both depending on what the final grade will be. It's the maximum we will take out if we keep the existing grades. But if we end up elevating the site a little bit, then we would take out, a little less material.
Thank you. That's all I have, Commissioner Shepard.
Commissioner Bell?
So one of the things that kind of, as I read through it, stuck in my craw was we get the pleasure of paying the regulators for the time that they spend regulating us. Is that how I read that? Just struck me. So they brought this to our attention at the origin of all of this. Is that correct?
I believe originally there was some sediment sampling that was done.
And we
That
have, we have no control or no ability to challenge whatever they're going to charge us for the privilege of having them regulate us? Is that a true reading of that paragraph where we reimburse the the regulators for their time?
Yeah, thanks, sorry, Ben. Yeah, that's right. Part of our agreements with the Department of Ecology that we reimburse them for their time spent on reviewing the documents related to these legal agreements. So that's built into those.
So we pay our taxes so that we could hire them, so that they can come back here and work on our projects, so they can bill us, so that we can tax our constituents to go pay them. Just making sure I've got this picture clear.
It is a relatively small component to the overall cost of these types of projects, and they do give us itemized timesheets, in which we do review and contest certain things. So we do review it as we would. We also, though, we are able to submit our time back that we spend on these projects for grant reimbursement. So it is kind of a strange do loop when you get there, but that is part of the structure of the MODCA, MODCA cleanup projects. Yeah.
That helps. So we get to submit ours so that we can get grant money to pay for the time that we just paid to the regulators who we already pay.
The only thing I would maybe argue on that is, instead of using our tax money to pay the bill, we're typically using PLP money.
Right. Oh. Yeah, there's a lot of other funding sources that we have to this. This is right. That's right, Rob. Yeah. Is that there's insurance settlements, there's other PLPs. So it's all part of that structure.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Definitely some trading of money.
Thank you.
Well, he's smiling now, he was frowning.
Well, my brain went to a dark place.
I was following you.
Do you have a cost estimate at this point?
Lots.
Yeah, we do have cost estimate. I think the estimate right now is about 14 million.
We expect to get 50% from MOTCA.
Yeah, yeah. We have most of that grant funding already allocated and forecasting for future grant funding.
And then we have a settlement to bring to bear on this from the identified party that was responsible.
Yeah, we did have an insurance settlement. I can't remember the exact date. I don't know if you remember, Brian. I think maybe 2018 or so, where we had a policy limits settlement.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? All right.
All right.
Carrie.
Approve a motion authorizing the executive director to execute an agreed order to perform remedial design at the Westman Marine cleanup site.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0.
All right. A motion authorizing the executive director to execute the second amendment to the Whatcom Waterway Consent Decree. Director of Environmental and Planning Services, Brian Gowen.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm back up here. So this is an interesting final action item. Is actually related to both of the things we've had so far. Ongoing redevelopment in the waterfront district from the Board Mill Group, and then the last presentation that Ben just gave was a very similar cleanup legal agreement that we have with the Washington State Department of Ecology. In this case, it's for the Whatcom Waterway MOTCA cleanup site. It's amendment number 2 to our consent decree. So this is a different agreement, further along in the process, and also part of a previous agreement that we entered into a consent decree with the Department of Ecology back in 2007. So this is an amendment to that. So just going to walk through a similar summary of where we're at. Again, this is the second amendment to an original agreement that we entered into in 2007. This changes a few items. One of the things it accomplishes is it prioritizes the dredging that is planned out in front of the Bellingham Shipping Terminal. That's as an early cleanup action. That's actually, I think, going out to bid here this week, if not out already. So that captures that from ecology's perspective, prioritizes that as an early action, which is great. It updates our cleanup action plan to adjust the cleanup approach for the aerated stabilization basin, or the ASB, which we've talked about a number of times. I got a slide that shows that. But then this is the legal process and the cleanup action plan that actually captures that and allows us to make that official change. It adds cleanup standards for dioxins and furans, which are chemicals that came onto the regulatory scene after 2007. And so we've just rolled that in there. It doesn't change any of the things we're doing for the cleanup, but it captures a regulatory change that we've agreed to that makes sense to do. That all of those changes and the legal document actually went out for public review and comment that was managed by the Department of Ecology in April. That closed in May 23rd. It included a public tour that was hosted by Ecology, the city, the port, and resources. Really well attended. Great day. I got out there, walked around, talked about the site. That was to spur any feedback or input from the public. Only a total of 12 comments were received during that comment period, though, and many of them were, "Hey, keep going, get this done. This is great work." Some of them were kind of confused on what the issue was. They were asking about stormwater things that were kind of unrelated to this. So Ecology very quickly responded to those comments. Have already issued a responsiveness summary and has determined that there would be no changes to the cleanup action plan or the legal document based on that feedback. I would just note that it was an engaged group that was on the tour. People were clearly, but I think the fact that we only received about 12 comments shows that there's a lot more confidence and faith in the environmental cleanups that the port and the Department of Ecology are doing throughout the waterfront district and Blaine as well. Just having seen the changes that have occurred, I think a lot more people are comfortable that they're getting done and they're getting done well. So that was really positive to see.
Brian, does
Yeah.
the Lummi Nation or other tribes participate in that public comment period, or are they providing input? It's, it's like a zoo, right?
Yeah, so
That's a comment on us. being-
a circus maybe would be better.
We're actually we're in the Bellingham Zoo.
Yeah, it's open to the general public, so anybody can comment at that time. So definitely welcome any comments from the tribal representatives. They also have in the in-water portion, they have a more formal process with the Corps of Engineers. So oftentimes they'll hold those comments for the permitting process. That
Comes later.
which comes later yeah, exactly. They are also part of and up to speed on our Bellingham Bay Action Team, which is a group of 14 state, local, federal, tribal agencies that get together and review these projects. So they're also tracking them and aware and involved in that process as well. So just as a quick reminder, the Whatcom Waterway site is a really it's the largest cleanup site in Bellingham Bay. It's over 700 acres all told. So it shows everything that's in this green area. The vast majority of that, all the green, is monitored natural recovery though. So no active remediation needs to occur. Natural sedimentation's coming in from the Nooksack and burying contaminants that were in the bay. The areas in yellow were completed in 2016 as part of Whatcom Waterway Phase 1, and the areas in blue then are what were remaining to be addressed as part of this change. And just, again, you've seen this figure, but just as a reminder, the change that we've agreed to with the Department of Ecology is to create a confined disposal facility within the ASB, so building a structural wall that demises the ASB, move all the soft sediments that are in there now behind the wall, and then also dredge and the areas in blue and put that behind the wall as well. Dredge and cap in the areas in green, and then all told open up the ASB, and that'll create about 14 acres of new upland that we can expand in the marine trades into, and about 14 or 15 acres of new open water in the ASB that we can use for marine trades, other uses. So that's again the cleanup approach, and there are kind of conceptual view of what that could look like. I think we've shown this a few times. Just to kind of give you the scale, it's a really large area that has a lot of potential. In conjunction with this work, just to go into next steps, we have a number of elements that we'll be bringing to the commission for a lot more discussion. So first step is to approve this consent decree amendment, execute and file that in Whatcom County Superior Court. Then we'll also complete the BST dredging, which is hopefully happening this fish window, so out to bid now and completed in 2023, 2024. Then we'll go into those much more detailed engineering and design work, like Ben had mentioned for Westman. We'll have a first early 30% design or engineering design report that will go to the Department of Ecology for review. And as that process is going forward, we're going to have regular detailed discussions with the stakeholders, with the commission and others to inform that design. So right now we're still at really pretty high level concept, but this will launch us into those more detailed. And I anticipate a project of this scale that will be coming to the commission much more regularly on the types of materials, what the depths are, what the elements are that are also need to be built into this design. So that'll be coming in much more detail. And then in parallel to that, we have ongoing land use discussions to be having with the city, where this new land will be accessed, where those public access that we committed to in our interlocal agreement, where can that be relocated? All those kinds of things will also be coming to the commission with a lot more updates. So I'd say over the course of the next year, you'll be hearing a lot more about this project as we bring these forward, make design decisions, get feedback, and then go make adjustments as needed. So the goal is to have this permitted and under construction starting in late 2025. We do think it's that's if everything's working really well. So that could get pushed a little bit as this process goes, but that's what we're shooting for. And it's probably a multi-year construction, so we're anticipating that it'll take multiple seasons to do. So that could go as late as into 2028 for a completion of the project. So that's the summary of where we're at. Again, this is right at this point is simply a legal agreement that we to capture the changes that we've been working with the commission on for a while now. So happy to address any questions you might have.
2028 is probably not going to happen, but we're hopeful.
Yeah. I mean, I think we really are on track. We've seen some things that have addressed some of these permitting delays. And now we have our port liaison with the NOAA Marine Fisheries, who's employed specifically for port projects. They've been great to work with, have really started to expedite that process. So some of these slowdowns that we saw, and then these kinds of big public decisions, once those are out of the way and we move into this engineering design, we really can make up some time.
Do you expect to find anything, or do you pretty much know what's under there when you start to dredge? Or do you expect a surprise or two?
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean,
know
there's
what's
always some surprises, but when you get into construction. But the RIFS, the remedial investigation, and all the work we've done to date, the pre-remedial design work, we've got so much data about this site. We've got a really good handle on it.
No surprises under there when you start to?
No, if so, it would be more like when we did Wacom Phase 1, we ran into structural things like, oh, there was a foundation that we didn't know was here, and there was a big coil of wire that they couldn't pound a sheet pile through, and they had to dig that out. But that was just construction stuff. It wasn't like, whoa, we've got an unknown contaminant that changes the game.
A pile of mercury sitting
Yeah,
there.
no, yeah.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Our depths, those have to be, in the first round we're talking about, those have to be set?
We'll be, I can go back up here. Are you kind of referring to like the depths for the access?
Not in the stabilization barrier as much as the green area out here where we're gonna be dredging. When do those depths have to be decided in?
Those will be coming at this next phase. So that's exactly, we need to understand all the depths and how they all tie together. So that'll be one of the first things, because establishing those
So
depths.
what we're voting on here now, we're not setting ourselves to a depth limit, correct? Okay.
Yeah. I think that within a range of,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't dig down 100 feet, I get that, but I don't want to end up shallow like we did in the other end up there.
right.
We do have an authorized depth here, though.
Yeah, the authorized depth for the ship, or for the federal channel is mostly in this area, and I believe that's at 45. And then in this area, that was deauthorized, so that's not part of an authorized depth. But a lot of those will tie into like how those function. We have I think a depth of -25 is what we're going for in this basin, and so that even the access to that'll have to tie into that. So it's going to have a fair amount of depth there. But we'll definitely be bringing these to the commission for discussion and making sure we're not going too
At
shallow.
-25 in the basin, I would assume that's on a zero tide?
Yeah,
Okay, so 0 minus 25?
yeah.
Do you think that's deep enough?
I think so, I have to talk to like some of the tried people with the big processing vessels and so on and so forth, but it's, zero, when you get a 4 foot minus, you're down to, didn't we just have a 4 foot minus, it's 3.5 foot minus, so you're down to 21 feet.
And we did.
I think that's probably, 21 feet is gonna be enough for most of their processor vessels are probably 16, 15, something like that, I think.
Okay.
Because they're usually pretty flat bottom, a lot of them. I'll do some,
Yeah.
when we get into that, I'll do some asking around to
Yeah.
the corporations and see what they're using.
And when we did do the early stakeholder input, like, we worked with the marine trades groups, we worked with, we didn't work with Trident directly, but we also had a consultant on board that had all their vessel specs and that kind of thing. And so we were looking at that. We'll definitely truth check all that and work with you on that too.
We just do, as long as, when we're working on that, we gotta make sure everybody's taken into account minus tides.
Yep, right.
Other than that, I think that was all I had written down.
What are the cost estimates for this?
This
one's
one
gonna be pricey.
is about
Lots and
160.
lots.
Yeah, right now we're about 160 million, and this is funded through a number of different sources, including existing grants. We will be needing that. We don't have that all under grant agreement at this point. We will be working with the legislature on MODCA, on multi-phasing, maybe even extended grant agreements that can go over multi-bienniums. So as all these designs move forward, I was talking to Ecology today about that as well, on like how to get their finance folks understanding, where this project is at and how the scale of it and where it's at in the process and how it has to kind of be kept as a top priority, even though we do have a lot of funding, we don't have enough yet. This also is part of the AIG package, as well as working with Georgia Pacific. And then we've also looked at parts of the ASB, which is going to be port funded, because that was neither insured or part of the GP agreement. So that would likely be financed, working with Rob and Tamara on those. But we've been projecting this for a while, trying to constantly refine what our needs are at on an annual basis based on where we're at in the design. We will potentially have some cost savings to this depending on the different elements that we've got kind of as contingent actions as well. So that's not going to take a huge bite out of that, but we're looking at how to manage the costs as tight as possible.
How does this rank in terms of state MOCA projects? Is this one of the bigger, more expensive projects overall for the state?
Oh yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest. Between Bellingham Bay and Whatcom Waterway, the lower Duwamish is really the biggest one. That's right in the mouth of the Green River there in the lower Duwamish. Multiple heavy industrial users for decades. So that's the biggest one. I think that's in the, they're start talking about 300 to 500 million kind of range, and that's just going to drag on and on for years. There's some other big bay-wide ones, but from a prioritization, Bellingham Bay continues to be a high priority. We've shown a track record of being able to get things done, been flexible with them on how to approach different things. So definitely a high priority, but we've got to continue to beat the MODCA drum when we get down into Olympia about how important this is for not just cleanup, but redevelopment, all the economic drivers.
And do you expect MOCA to keep coming in at the 50% range, or are we able to push them higher?
We have, it at a minimum, it would be 50% is what we'd be eligible for. There's a process to go higher than that. I think it's, we have to look at that on kind of how they would respond. It's usually a director approval if there's the director of ecology. So if we have a case for that, we can take that to them. We've got to look at kind of the folks that have been successful in that in the past, and see what the rationales there were. But this is one that I think it'd be definitely worth looking at. There's a lot at stake here.
Would you be able to put it together, kind of a graphic for us of just percentages? They can be rough, but so we're able to help understand what percentage of money is coming from AIG, what percentage is coming from MOCA.
Sure.
We know that's about 50. What percentage is coming from any other sources? Because I think we're going to get questions on this. It's a big dollar amount. It's going to be a high priority and high profile project. And I just want to make sure if we get questions from the legislature or the public, that we've got the best info going forward.
Yeah, happy to do that. We can do that. And just to make sure, we can do it for kind of all of our sites because we already have that kind of pulled together, or we could do it just for Whatcom, depending on how you'd like to see that. But that'd be helpful for all of them. Okay. Yep. Will do. Yeah, we've prepared that. We've done that for ecology because they are trying to project their grant needs and what they need to budget for. So we've got something. We update that regularly. So we've got something like that we can pull. Yep, got it. Will do. Yep.
Couple more questions, Brian. The under under pure area at BST, what do they intend to pull the pilings there or dredge around them, or what are they thinking on doing?
Yeah, that area is highlighted that there's contamination that needs to be addressed under that area. There's multiple ways to do that. So, for example, with the MARAD work that we're preparing to do, you can see the kind of that red dashed line goes right up to it, and that'll dredge up to the face, but not under. So we will actually also be pulling part of the deck off as part of that MARAD funded project. Replacing it with removable panels so that in the future we can come back, pull those decks, do the dredging in that area and put it back, and then move on. And we'll have a kind of a sequence of removing different chunks of that at a time, but also keeping that heavy lift area always operational for our cargo handling. So that's hashed and called out that way specifically because there's multiple ways that this design will help inform how we get that material out from under those. And we know that in one section we'll be doing it the way I described. It may be that the other area we pull everything out, dredge it all and put it all back, may be done in other sequences, but it does need to be addressed as part of the cleanup.
Okay. The other question is up on the road or the bridge there, the green, contingent on port obtaining
Okay.
funding. We're gonna do some more dredging there?
That's what we're looking at. We put it in there as a contingent item because depending on if it's a habitat project or other elements to that, but it would include some removal of some additional contamination in there. So some dredging, but also some replacement with some habitat.
No MACA funding for that part of it?
We may have some MICA funding eligible, but this is why that's why I put it this way, because some of it may not be eligible. So we want to make sure that if we're going to fund that project, that we know what the benefits of that area would be. So
I'm pretty sure it's not any better than the rest of it as far as contamination.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where my grandfather tied his boat when I was a kid, and it used to bubble, the water bubbled
Yeah.
all the time. It was pretty bad.
yeah, we did address part of that in the phase one. So then this would take more out. Yeah.
Well, I think it's great we're able to use that ASB as a containment. I mean, that's a lot of sediment that's going to go in there and would otherwise have to be hauled out. So
Right.
that's nice. I hope Ecology likes that. You know, that should be a good cost savings for everybody here.
Right. That was one of the elements that actually, this was the previous approach. This is a cost savings for everybody, even though it's still an expensive project.
Cost savings are relative
Yeah.
when we're talking about a project of this scope here, but we get a lot out of it, getting that ASB ready for use. I mean, this is gonna make the ASB ready for use.
Yeah.
Correct?
Right.
By 2028.
That's, and then there'll be other be ready for use. So that's why in parallel, we'll be doing the,
Right. And we're all kind of smiling
Yeah.
at that, but.
yeah, I mean,
I was hoping earlier, what's the holdup?
yeah. So I mean, there'll be other work to do, like put in utilities and roads and all that. So in theory, and what we looked at is that if there's areas that we know we have a tenant or a use that we want to invest more in this, like if we wanted to expedite the drying out of the area or settling or putting in some material that would be ready to go right off the bat versus areas that can settle for longer or other things like that. So this land use planning that's going on in parallel will help inform that too. But the land will be up and created by the time that we finish the project in 2028, hopefully.
Touched a bit on something that's been picking at my brain here while I'm looking at this. Dredging isn't real stable for a long time because you got a lot of water mixed into it, and it's gonna be hard for that water to run off, so you're making a big puddle of soup, thick soup mush, if you wanna call it. The dredging material that we're gonna take out of that waterway, how much is that gonna, how much, as far as level-wise after our wall, how full are we gonna be in there?
Yeah, that's all these are design discussions, and we have some preliminary ideas on that we'll have to bring some more material in. This won't fill that to the exact grade. Plus, we'll need structural fill, because like I said, it's not all structural. It's kind of soft. It's going to settle. So we will be dewatering it, though. We'll use the existing ASB outfall pipe to continue to dewater that. But we'll be needing to bring in fill on top of that, plus to meet the grades back to where the warehouse is. So we're in that calculations right now. So we'll have to bring material in.
So will you mix that fill in with it as you're pumping the dredgings in? will that mix at that point, or what are they gonna do, pump the dredge in and then put the fill on top?
Yeah, for the most part, that's there's some sequencing to it. Actually, even some of the contamination wants to stay at a deeper depth below the groundwater table because it keeps it in this anaerobic condition, which makes it more stable. So there will be some sequencing even on the, based on what we know, which is areas that have more contamination will go in deeper. Then there'll be a sequencing of more material on top of that. The upper portion, there could be some mixing with drier material, but that's, again, that example, like if we wanted to create a more quickly usable area or parcel or road, we may do that. But
Concrete.
yeah, concrete or a drying agent, yeah.
So I'm assuming the wall then is gonna be pretty thick to hold back this mush we're putting in there.
Yeah, no, it's gotta be, it's a large structural wall, anticipated to be kind of a hoop type of structure that they've built. They've used those around multiple places, and it's shown to kind of, for this exact purpose.
All right. So we're gonna have to bring in a lot of fill and plus what we're gonna put in there.
Right, yep. And that's anticipated, that's been part of this, this has, been part of the design up to this point.
Got to dig out a bowl for swimming pool,
Yeah.
stadium, I don't know. What we could- yeah. Okay,
So this is the nuts and bolts of the change,
Yeah,
correct?
right. Yeah, this is really the main change. There's not a whole lot changing from the other agreement that we already had in place. So this is just capturing what we've already essentially agreed to, change the land use decision from a marina to expansion of marine trades. And so this is just capturing that.
So is this in size to what it's gonna be? Cause it looks to me like we're filling in more than half of it here.
This is what we've shown, kind of anticipating. This is a placeholder at this point, depending on the volumes that we calculate. This is kind of shows that this wall could kind of move in a given location up to a certain point. We'll have to make a decision eventually and say this is where the wall is going to go, and here's the volume that we have. So there are a few decisions on that still to be made. But as we get into design and we know the volumes, that will help set that wall to say, okay, here's the volume that we have. And here's where that wall wants to be to accommodate that volume of material.
Okay. Cause I know we talked about third and half, and this looks like more than half.
Yeah, we could definitely do the math on it. It's about as far as area go, because it's kind of an odd shaped polygon for the water side. It's about 14 acres and 15 acres is what I've had, give or take, depending on where that wall goes.
All right.
But we can get you much more detailed.
Thank you.
and Brian, does this complete the cleanup work in water that's associated with contamination from GP?
It's a good question. Yes, it will. This will complete the work for the Whatcom Waterway, which is, I guess, is the main GP-related sediment cleanup site. The Cornwall Avenue landfill was part of that acquisition as well, but that was kind of a different process and different reason. But this is the main in-water environmental cleanup related to the GP site. The majority of the rest of them are upland sites.
So the rest is mostly the chlor-alkali
Yep,
upland.
yep, and it's the central waterfront too, which is the marine trades upland area.
And are you in discussion with taking some of the stuff from Cornwall to assist with some of this?
No, that one's actually pretty far along in the design, and really that's just capping it. It's containing it in place. There's nothing to leave there. It's actually containing it all in
So
place.
you're not going to try, okay.
Yeah.
This is worth sticking around for.
Yeah,
This is a big deal.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big project.
Hey, run it again?
This is a legacy project.
You see that 2-8, didn't you? You're out before they did.
Yeah, I'm gone before it's over. You don't really want to be gone before it's, I say this to you and to Ben, the number of things that the balls that you guys keep in the air is just phenomenal to me. And the fact that you make it all happen in such a organized way, it doesn't feel like chaos at all. And it feels like you guys have the competency to actually make all these balls land in the right hand. So, yeah, kudos. I'm really confident in both your presentations today that it's
thank
going to
you.
happen the
Yeah.
way you say it's going to.
You gotta hold me to it. Dang it. No, thank you.
Very complex projects here.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. All right, sounds like we've reached our verdict. Finished all of our questions here. Carrie?
Okay. A motion authorizing the executive director to execute the Second Amendment to the Waccamaw Way consent decree.
All right, Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
Commissioner Bell,
Absolutely.
and I'm a yes as well.
Thanks,
We're all in agreement here. Good work. We've reached the end of our regular meeting business. I'll make a call for any additional public comment, either from the guests in the room or from those online. Looks like all staff on Zoom, so hearing none, we'll move into other business. Who's got some? Commissioner Bell, got anything for us today?
No, but I'm going to ask,
But.
No, but.
No, but.
That's still a yes.
it's for the next meeting. I'm going to ask Robin to, let's take a look at some of these long leases that we're being asked to extend. I'd like to have us discuss as a commission what it means to have a, I know we approved another 60-year lease today, and I'm looking at what Bellingham Cold Storage is looking.
I don't think we approved another 60.
No, it was
Originally a 60.
Originally a
Yeah,
60.
it started off as a 60.
And I just look at all these long-term leases, and I would like to have the commission discuss some of that stuff as we go forward, what we believe, what we think, and
I think our long-term leases that we're doing today are way different than the long-term leases that were done in the past.
that's why I think we need a discussion, yeah. I'd like to be on the same page
I'm
with
speaking out
the
of
commission.
No, we'll put that on an agenda, as an agenda item for one of the September meetings.
Thank you.
Speaking of meetings, well, that was brought up, we've got a.
Oh, yeah, that's other business item that we had, is we wanted to move the meeting from the 19th to the 12th, move it up a week. We originally planned the 19th to give Bobby time to get back. He's already back, so we're hoping to move it back to the 12th. I'm going to Dallas to visit BNSF on the 19th. I can do remote if I have to, but I'd prefer be in person since we're going to have 5 weeks between now and then without a meeting.
I've got a Montana wedding I could be at on the 12th for my cousin.
Remote it is.
We were trying to figure a day out.
Yeah, no, let's keep it on the 19th and I'll dial in.
Well, let's see if we can't, I mean, do we have a lot going on for this meeting coming up?
Not yet, but there's 5 weeks away, so a lot will materialize. But we will have to have a meeting, but either the 12th or the 19th, because 5 weeks is a long time.
We don't want to have it on the 26th because we have 2 meetings in October, and that would just give.
Yeah, but if we did one on the 26th, could we alleviate the first one in October? Combine whatever we were.
I think that's just too long between now and the 26th. I think you're going to have leases that need to be dealt with, et cetera, that are outside my authority. So let's just keep it on the 19th, and I can dial in. I'm effective from the road. That works. And it's easier for everyone else because that's what everyone has on their calendars anyway.
So we'll have a meeting on the 5th of September?
No, just the 19th.
Oh, just the 19th.
Yeah.
We typically don't have a 2 in September?
We haven't the last couple of years, and for some reason this year you guys decided to do September.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who's.
I don't remember the conversation in January. I was a bit surprised we only had one. My preference would be we have 2 in September for next year, but I think for this year, let's just leave it and I'll make it work.
All right.
We can make it light and just do consent agenda.
Yeah. Well, let's see what materializes between now and then.
Okay. That works for me.
I think,
Anything anything else? I just wanted to get a report back on the tune-up.
Yeah, tune-up went really well. 5,500 tickets sold, set up quite a bit differently this year than last year. The fencing only went around the pump track and the main stage. So the public had access to all the vendors, all the demo bikes, anyone selling anything, the container village, trackside, that was all open, even if you didn't have a ticket to the event. So a lot more public went through the vendors and than last year, because last year that was only ticket holders got to go through there. The new jump line was a huge success. I was there for its grand opening, and it had a lineup of people hitting it. When we built it, I thought it was going to be too big. I was like, there's maybe 5 people in Bellingham that can hit this. Try more like a couple hundred that were hitting it. And there was an 8-year-old up from Florida that was doing backflips off one of the jumps. It was incredible to watch. Yeah. The skill level has progressed in Bellingham at that age level. That's just amazing to me. When we were kids, you didn't see anything like that. Everyone had fun. It was really well organized, secure event. I didn't hear about too many problems at all. The Northwest Tune-Up folks and the Mountain Bike Club did a great job providing ample security. It was orderly. There was only a couple, drunkish incidences. $100,000 worth of beer sales in the Tune-Up Beer Garden. That doesn't count trackside. Just the Tune-Up Beer Garden over by the main stage did $100,000 of beer sales in the weekend.
How about the other vendors? Were they?
Yeah, all the vendors were happy. They're all providing feedback. We already met with the tune-up folks about next year. They're making some tweaks to next year based on feedback they got from those vendors. But all the vendors were very happy and want to come back. They see this as being a signature event prior to Whistler's Crankworks. And they're all on their way up to Crankworks. Crankworks just concluded, or it's going on. I think this is the final weekend coming up of it. So they like this event as kind of their tune-up before Crankworks, work out all the bugs, and then head up to Crankworks, which is the biggest mountain bike festival in the world. They head up there and they do the same thing. So, yeah, I think it was a huge success. The Mountain Bike Club and the tune-up folks were very pleased. Lots of different bands playing. There's a lot more bands this year than last year. I think it was just really well organized. And we learned from it. We had some stuff scheduled down there that we realized we probably can't do next year. We just need to dedicate the site to the tune-up at that point.
Okay.
Parking wasn't a big deal. Parking's always an issue down there, but people knew they couldn't park down there, so there was just a lot of bikes, and the bike valet was full. So,
Okay. Well, it sounds like we took feedback from last year and made it both more accessible to the public and sold more tickets.
yep.
That's a win.
And Kai was there watering all the time, so the dust was a lot less than prior years. And last year it was me down there watering, and I got a little tired of it and would go home, and then it would get dusty. But yeah, so Kai and I kind of traded off a little bit of watering duties. A couple of the Shire guys kicked in, and we kept the dust levels down. But Kai's been a big hit down there too. He's got a great personality for that job. His title is park host, and he's being a great host.
Cool. Like it. All right.
I have a couple things.
Yeah, I'll go for it.
Is Elliot still in the house by chance?
I think he had an appointment. I just watched him run out.
Okay. I was curious, we talked a little bit about Earthshades, and he wanted to explain it a little bit, the property we bought up there and what was going on there, so.
We'll get you an update on that as well at a future meeting. And we're actually going to be sitting down with you on one-on-ones in the near future, discuss a number of things, and we're going to have that on that list. Basically, the bottom line is the industrial pieces are full. The office building is empty. We're trying to figure out what we can do with that office building as far as turn it into an industrial use.
That was quick. It filled up quick.
Yeah, the demand is huge.
Problem filling it.
We could fill up another one if we had it. So that's why we want to look at that office building and say, okay, how do we turn this? What's the most economical way to turn this into industrial property?
Wow.
And you've done the cost benefit it's not going to pencil out as office.
Well, you'd take too much money. you could do it, and you could probably make it pencil, but I think it's better to make it industrial. There's far more demand for the industrial. Yeah.
And it's a long way from Class A.
Yeah, it's a long way from Class A. Well, I brought up moving the port offices up there, and you guys saw the reception that got, so.
I think we'd have if we got to move them over to that building by Mount Baker Plywood that they can't fill the bottom floor on. It's got nice views. You can watch everything. It's on the waterfront where the office is.
We don't own that building, though.
Yeah,
so.
but they've got to be getting tired of not being able to rent the bottom half. So,
Nice building.
It is.
no, I saw we put a lot of gravel up in Blaine, and are we expecting to put more there, or is that?
Noah Carlson, property manager for the port. Yes, we did add some gravel to that lot just to help absorb some of the flooding that has occurred, and also to with the potential of short-term lease for storage for.
Next question, if we had people on the short-term lease there.
Yeah, and it would be short-term, month to month.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Blaine? Okay.
I was just curious where we were at with that. I saw that when I got in this weekend, I saw that you gravelled there and things were going on, so wanted to check out what was going on. Our harbor security, the folks we hired, I'm getting grave reviews from everybody on that.
Great or great?
Great, great. Sorry, mispronunciation. I didn't get grave reviews. I got great reviews. Thing that crosses my mind is it's not enough. I think we got 6 people and, you know, if somebody's sick or somebody's out, I think I want to bring that discussion up.
Our plan is to add a couple more. Each year, we're going to grow that department until we got all our security in-house. This year, we kept it a little low-key so that we could figure it out, but we'll add more and more security personnel.
Okay. Okay, yeah, no, because I'm all about that, and you know I have been since I got here. I want to do everything in-house we can do.
Our plan is to get that converted over the next couple of years. We're going to take our time, do it very slowly, make sure we absorb it correctly rather than rushing into it, so.
The response I hear from the guys in the dock is it's nice to see same faces all the time and know that the guys are learning what's going on instead of having a turnover like it was happening all the time and nobody really cared about what they were doing, so.
I think it's a great change, yep. Congratulations to Norm and Dave. They've done a good job with that.
Joe, how are things over at the terminal other than not busy enough?
Joe Schmidt, 830 East Douglas. No, everything's good. Got a rock back again. This, when we were talking about this new development that's gonna happen, makes me a little bit nervous. I mean, we've already got complaints, noise and dust, and I just can foresee more of it. And we do need, I guess I can say it right now, I think, I was talking to Andy Anthony from ABC, and I think, you know, before we had talked about changing adjusting hours. The local isn't very keen on that idea for lots of reasons. And I think what we could do, I think what we should do is sit down with the mayor, the port, the Longshore, the Stevedore Company, the South Hill, and put everything on the table, and ABC, the company, and sit there and you know, see what we can do. Because right now it's just he said, she said, and now what I'm hearing is the day-to-day operations, they're complaining about that now too. Just the 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock every day. So, you know, I don't know, we can't do anything about that. So I think if we sat down with everybody and just found, you know, put all the cards on the table, what does everybody want? And how can we address it? Because we can't just guess what, we can't go and just get rid of hours or cut our hours back and then they say, well, that's not good enough. You know, they don't want them there anyway, so.
And can we put a meeting together? Maybe we can
Yeah,
facilitate that?
we'll try and put something together. That's not going to be an easy group to get all in one room, and I'm not sure the result's going to be what everyone likes it, but,
Like mattresses up on the walls and bars and the doors?
Yeah, I don't know if they have a main spokesperson or whatever.
they do. They've got a couple. Yeah, there's a couple that can represent them, so we'll bring them into the room. I'm not getting complaints on the day-to-day. No one's calling me. I don't know if they're calling the commissioners, but I'm only getting phone calls when there's a ship in.
I haven't heard anything since the last meeting where Sarah, I believe, got up and spoke, and I spoke with her. I spent about an hour and a half with her after the meeting talking about stuff, and I haven't heard anything. Of course, we haven't had a lot of activity ship-wise, but I think in this instance, my personal feeling is that maybe the spokespeople may not be speaking for all the people. They may be speaking for a certain group, because I think when some of the other folks that live in the area have asked questions and they've been given the answers, then they understand. I've spoken with several people that live up there that tell me that when the noise is happening, it's way less than GP ever was. So I think we're kind of all over the board, and I think that maybe just getting spokespeople together to speak might not be the best avenue, because it kind of leaves out people that might not be a member of that group that may have something informative or something that may shed light on some things. So I think we have to think about that a little bit. But
Quite frankly,
I do think what you said, Joe, of trying to get something together everybody say, this is what it is, this is where we're at. You know, where is everybody at and what can we do to get to a happy medium, so to speak. So, but have you guys heard much?
I haven't received many complaints over the last 2 months, but there hasn't been a ship either.
Right.
I haven't either, and you're never going to make everybody happy. And quite frankly, there are more of you not traveling south to work than there are people complaining. So when you look at the totality of what's going on, there are more people benefiting from your activities than there are people being harmed, and the loudest voices in the room tend to dominate. But when you look at and especially the people I know that live on South Hill, none of them are affected, or they're actually outraged that there are people complaining as vehemently as they are. So to try to get a group of people together, we could get the loudest voices in the room, and they're just going to be the loudest voices, and they're never going to be satisfied. And truthfully, there's more of you guys staying home, coming home at night for dinner, than there are people complaining. So that my take on that is I'm not sure what you're going to get out of it, but I understand the sentiment behind it.
In our last noise, I wasn't here, I didn't see, but I read a little bit, and it sounded like things that were going on the roads were much noisier than what was going on down there on the site.
The noise studies continue to show that we're meeting, we're below thresholds that we'd consider to be reasonable. So we think we're in compliance with local noise ordinances, and there's some other things we can do that ABC has talked about doing, and we'll continue to look at those. And I mean, no one's giving up on this, saying it is just what it is. We're going to continue to look at different avenues we can go. One of the things ABC brought up is that if they can load with the big crane, that could possibly reduce the noise and speed up the loading process, so the ship's not here as many days and it's less noisy. So. Yep, so that's.
And once the dredging gets done, we can bring the ship closer, which is also going to help.
Correct.
Make things faster.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff like that that are going to be slight improvements here over time that we're looking at.
Joe, tell me about the hours, because that is a particular complaint that we get, is the late night noise when people are sleeping, and I think that's maybe outside of the norm for other noises that people experience. Is that a local decision that you guys can make about that 11 to 3 shift, or is it tied up in other decision makers?
No, it would tie up, it would take in the whole coast on what we would have to go to them, to the coast, and the people way over my head and get the okay from them. It doesn't happen very often, but it could happen. I'm not saying it won't or couldn't. But the problem, the attitude with the local is, well, this happens and it's going to happen to the next, or where does it stop? Does it end up like Anacortes where it shuts down at 10 o'clock? That's their concern. And it's outside of our contract, what we do and our hours. That's not to say that it couldn't work somehow, adjusting, starting an hour earlier, or you could work continuous through lunch. And I'm just rattling on lots of different scenarios, but it'll be a hard sell, let's put it that way. It's not something that we just do here at in our hall and our local. It would have to go south.
Well, I can see that, and I can see the concern over it being a slippery slope,
Yeah, that's their concern. Where does it stop?
Right.
Their attitude is they don't want work down there, period, anyway. That's the bottom line. And everybody I talk to on the Hill, everybody complains about the train more than, they don't even hear us, and the train's way noisier. So I don't know. I didn't mean to bring that up. I wasn't. I was going to talk to Rob about that Thursday, but.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Joe. That was my only question. Thank you. That's all I have.
That's it. Anything else? All right.
I just got sent a picture of Carson buying his first legal beer. Turned 21 today.
Oh, happy birthday, Carson.
Happy hangover,
Nice
Carson.
work. Legal. Legal. All right. Well, on that note, we're done.